This meeting is being recorded.
All right, I'm calling the meeting to order. It is 7 o'clock on April 27th. This is the Los Osos Advisory Board. My name is Trish Bartel and I am the chair. And let me do a roll call for LOCAC members. First, Patrick McGibney.
Here.
Andrea Luker.
Present.
Kristen Horowitz. Present. Larry Bender.
Present.
Larry Rayo.
Present.
Deborah Howe.
Present.
John Lent.
I'm here.
Jim Stanfield.
Here.
And Trish, I'm present. All right. Going down on the agenda, the chairperson announcements. I just want to let everybody know that Tom Cross did resign this week, and it is with sadness that I accepted his resignation. And I just wish him the best luck going forward, and as I'm sure all of you do too. With that, let's move on to council member announcements. Andrea.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to let everyone know that the money from the Dig and Deep fundraiser and also associated fundraisers was beginning to be dispersed early this week. And hopefully that will be all out and maybe all out by now. And then the Los Osos Emergency Coalition group that has been working on that is now going to pivot to looking at how we prepare Los Osos for the next emergency that we're going to be having. So how do we make sure that we're more prepared in terms of taking care of people that are displaced and providing services in this community specifically, so they don't have to go to places like Morro Bay and San Luis Obispo. So that's the plan. That's the next step. So we'll keep you posted, but that's what we're going to be doing.
Perfect.
Well
That's
done.
wonderful. Are there any other council? Kristen.
Mine is very cutesy. I happened to win the adult coloring contest at the library and was able to pick up a tree today from the nursery. And I just thought it was a really cool community event. My kids colored it. Everybody was very excited. I have a relationship with the library. And if you haven't been to the library, you totally should. They have amazing programs and free seeds and all kinds of goodies. So.
Wonderful. Perfect. Any other council? Okay. Let's move on then to county and local reports. Do we have the sheriff here tonight? Either Sergeant Elliott or Sergeant Coase? If so, could you raise your hand? We have 53 attendees tonight. I don't see them on the list. All right, let's go to the highway patrol report. Do we have Captain Klingenberg here tonight? If so, can you raise your hand? Okay.
Not seeing him either.
Not seeing him either. All right, county staff report. Claire Momberger from the planning department.
She's here.
There you are. Hi, Claire. Welcome for coming tonight. Oh, let's unmute you. Oh, no, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Cool. It's been 3 years. You can still have technical issues.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, thank you for having me. I am Claire Momberger. I'm a long-range planner with our County Planning and Building Department. And I have the pleasure of now 2 months in being the liaison from the county to this meeting. A really brief update today. I shared earlier this week the active permits and plans reports with Tom. If any questions come up, I'm happy to look into those reports for you. There were no tree removal requests since the last meeting, so there was no report on that. And then I also just wanted to address, I'm sure a lot of people are aware, but on April 4th, the Board of Supervisors heard the coastal zone ADU ordinance with the suggested modifications from the Coastal Commission. The most significant for Los Osos is that Los Osos was excluded from the ordinance in terms of having ADUs as an allowable use. So I just wanted to bring that up, and yeah, I'm here for any questions. I'll be here for the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Currently, is there any meetings from council members for Claire?
I have a question. If she could explain what she just summarized a little bit more in detail, what the Board of Supervisors decided about ADUs.
Yeah, so their staff wrote a coastal zone ADU ordinance. I think it was first brought to our board in 2020 or 2021. And the Coastal Commission had some suggested modifications for that ordinance, primarily being that Cambria and Los Osos would be two communities that at this time could not have ADUs as an allowable use in their communities. And so the opportunity where that kind of is right now is it has to be certified by the Coastal Commission. That final decision by our board, it has to be certified by the Coastal Commission. And I think that's on track to happen in May. And then if there is any ordinance or documentation or legislation about allowing ADUs in those areas, it will happen with the local community plan.
Okay. Thank you, Claire. Let's go to Andrea.
Thanks, Trish. Claire, thank you so much for for responding so quickly to my question before the Tree and Landscape Committee meeting last week about the HCP, but for the benefit of everybody here, which we have a lot, can you just give us a quick update on what's happening with the Habitat Conservation Plan? I very much appreciate it.
Absolutely. So our staff was ready to submit the plan to the service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, but they came back with some last minute questions that our project manager and our division manager are in the process of answering right now.
So do you think we'll still have it ready by June?
I don't know if I'm the perfect person to answer that. I just know they're in the middle of those conversations. But I can keep you informed, Trish, and you can disperse as I hear new information.
That'd be great. Thank you, Claire.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Patrick?
Thank you. Claire, with the ordinance now prohibiting ADUs, in the letter that Dan Carl wrote almost a year ago to the county, they equated ADUs in guest houses also, and the guest houses required CDPs. How does this ordinance now affect guest houses? Are they also not allowed?
A guest house is considered a part of the primary use on the property, part of the primary residence, and so there is no separate ordinance needed.
Okay, so are guest houses given a CDP?
I don't know the answer to that for sure, Patrick, but my inclination is no.
And they're not noticed then because they're ministerial permits?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, any other council questions? All right, let's go to the community. Jeff has his hand up. I will ask you to unmute.
Am I on now? I can't see.
Yes, you are.
Oh,
Yes, you
great. Question for you, Claire, and we don't have as much representation with the Public Works. I do know there's a 23-24 budget that the Board of Supervisors is going to be, I guess, reviewing early May. And that budget's really not available for the public to look at until probably a week before that. What I'm most concerned or interested in is really understanding what Public Works plans to be doing within Los Osos. When we did our sewer project, there were a lot of deferred road improvements, and I want to say not improvements, resurfacing. They were deferring things, going to be a couple, 3 years to save some money. We're now about 7 years from the sewer project, and I see a lot of roads that do need to be, in my opinion, resurfaced. And I'd like to at least see if we're in the hunt here. Is there some way that you can liaison with them and get us back information prior to the meeting so we can have some input?
Hey, Claire, I can help with this one a little bit. Bruce Gibson on his report is going to talk about the budget timelines, what's in it with Los Osos, some of the projects that are coming for Los Osos. So maybe if Claire doesn't have the answer, maybe Bruce will.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I didn't see it on the agenda, so I was.
Yeah, is right underneath his name.
All righty, great. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Let's go to Becky McFarland. I'm asking you to unmute.
Okay. Hi, Claire. Thanks for being here today. I still have some questions about the guest house versus ADU. It's supposed to be, it's like a separate use from the main house. And you said that this ordinance is about ADUs, but back to what Patrick said, Coastal Commission considers them the same. Was there actual discussion on that when they met? And yeah, it's just confusing because they said no, and the county kept giving out permits and is still giving out permits. Some of those units were put in as ADUs to begin with and then switched to guest house because obviously some are getting put in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lindy, I'm asking you to unmute.
Thank you. Hi, Claire. Thank you for being here today. I'm also concerned that the guest houses are virtually the same as an ADU and use water. So I'd like to find out what the answer to that one is, why they're exempted. I had an issue that came up with the road, basically. The road, I'm on 10th Street, and there's a section of 10th Street that has flooded ever since the sewer got put in and the road was resurfaced. It aimed all the water into a different direction. When it flooded the property next door to me, which then proceeded to flood me, we talked to the county, and I'm questioning whether this is whose responsibility. Is it Public Works or Planning Department?
Public Works.
So, but we just talked about the road surfacing, and when a road is surfaced, it's put back. It should be put back the way it's supposed to be, which would mean the proper berming part to.
Okay, but that's not Claire. Claire's planning, and what you're asking is Public Works, and we'll try to get them to a meeting so that they can answer some of these questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We need to move on. We've got a big agenda. Becky, quickly, one more question. I'm asking you to unmute.
Yes, thank you. Claire didn't get a chance to answer my question. To clarify the ADU guest house, you just went on to Lindy. So was there just, I don't know if you were part of those discussions where they talked about ADUs and guest houses, because Coastal Commission considers them basically the same. So we're just wondering, and I had mentioned that some of the units that were ADUs then were reapplied for as guest houses. So that's my question.
Yeah, so I was definitely not part of those discussions. Honestly, there were not discussions. It was a letter that was published and given to the county. And I think it's important to note where in time that letter appeared, which was after Coastal's initial comments on the Los Osos community plan that was adopted by the Board of Supervisors in 2020 and now, so that letter came in between there. In terms of the guest house and ADU situation, I'm not indoctrinated enough in the processes to answer, what the difference is in those processes. But what I do know is a guest house just by definition is considered a part of the primary use on a property. And then there is a secondary dwelling ordinance for the community of Los Osos that is quite restrictive compared to ADU ordinances in the rest of the county. And there are certain size secondary dwellings that can be permitted just, and get a zoning clearance because of the existing ordinance. I'm not sure if that answers your question. I don't know if there was a question in there, but to address that letter from Coastal, the planning department is in pretty constant communication with the Coastal Commission when it comes to water resources and responding to the commission's concerns over water resources on the Los Osos community plan. So at least now in time, there are active discussions about water use for particular residence types. And then our Title 19 water offset study really takes a deep dive into average usage of residence types in Los Osos. And we're looking at a completion date of that study this summer.
Thank you, Claire.
Yeah.
Barbie and Jeff Gurley, I'm asking you to unmute.
You're on.
Hi there. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Barbie Green. What? Should I talk now?
No, Barbie, wait till later.
Okay.
We're talking about planning.
Okay. Why did you ask me to unmute?
Because your hand was up.
Your hand was up. Your little hand was up.
Sorry about that.
That's
Okay.
fine. Okay, thank you guys very much. Let's move on to a presentation from the Regional Water Quality Control Board of the Central Coast. And that is our great friend, James Bishop. And we're so glad to have him back. And can someone find him and unmute him? Oh, here you are.
Oh, there he is.
There you are. Hi,
He's
James.
going to want
Hi.
to share screen, Trish.
Pardon?
He needs to share screen.
Okay,
Can you all hear me?
yes.
Yes.
Great.
Okay, you should be able to jump on.
All righty. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
And is it the presentation? PowerPoint?
Mhm.
Perfect. Well, thanks.
It's not in presentation mode though, James.
Let me- What's going on?
Oops, we lost it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to,
Okay.
I've got 3 screens going here and I can't figure out which one I need to be activating. Let me see here. Is that in presentation mode?
Yes.
Yes, that looks great.
And can you also unmute Jennifer Epp? That's my boss and she is on, and just in case she wants to chime in.
Is that Jennifer's iPad? Because that's the only one I can see.
Yeah. Yep.
And by the way, I don't know if you know, but your notes are visible. So if you wrote anything naughty and you don't want us to see it, you should be careful of that.
Huh, let me see if I can move things around here and get the right.
Kristen always looking out for people.
Yeah,
Much
good looking out. I
appreciated.
appreciate it. Let me try and share the right screen.
Okay.
Not that
By the way, welcome, Jennifer. I don't see you. Did you get unmuted?
Oh, I found her.
Okay, yeah. And we should just let
I
her.
got it. I found it. I think she just it didn't click through. I'm pretty good at
Okay.
getting there. She should be unmuted. So now
Yes,
it's
she
on.
is.
Jennifer, are you unmuted?
I am.
Oh, there you are. Okay, while James is fiddling with his computer, why don't you introduce yourself and explain why you're a part of this presentation?
Sure, yeah, happy to. So my name is Jennifer Epp. I'm what we call the Waste Discharge Requirements Program Manager here at the Central Coast Water Board. And one of the members of my team, James Bishop, is going to present to you some information about some data that we have about some nitrate issues at some wells in Los Osos.
Thanks. Welcome.
Thanks.
My-
Yeah, go ahead, James.
Oh, I'm having some issues loading my presentation now. Hold on just a sec. All right, let's try this one more time. What screen do you all see now?
Just our normal one with all
Yeah,
of
we
the
don't see
little-
your screen.
We don't see you at all.
Do you see the presentation without notes?
No.
Okay.
Okay, now it's coming in,
Yep.
but it's not in slide mode.
Oh, who cares?
Oh, you just had it.
Yeah,
Is that it?
Yeah.
but with notes. We're seeing it with notes.
But your notes are good.
Okay, we'll just keep it with the notes.
All right.
Fine.
Okay.
James, if you want, you can slide the line. I'm assuming that you need to read your notes, because if not, you can slide the line over there.
There you go.
There you go.
You can kind of
Yeah,
cheat.
there we go.
All right, perfect.
Thanks for bearing with me. Technology is hard, even for those of us that use it every day. My name is James Bishop. I'm an engineering geologist at the Central Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board. I work in the WDR program, which regulates wastewater discharges to land. I'm joined today by my supervisor, Jennifer Epp, who just spoke with you all. And I'm here to present on the nitrate concentration increases that have been observed in 2 water supply wells located in the western portion of the basin. You know, the intent of this presentation is to, one, let the public know about the problem and that the regional board is working on it, describe what some of the technical work that has gone on to identify the sources of nitrate impacting these wells, and then discuss possible mitigations that could occur depending on which source or sources are ultimately identified as contributing. You know, the regional board is working on this in part because if these nitrate sources are controllable, the regional board has a responsibility and an authority to help mitigate the problem. This presentation is going to be about 10 slides, so hopefully not too terribly long. And I'm going to just provide a very, very high level overview of the technical work that has been done. And if you're interested in getting more into the technical weeds of the hydrogeology and the investigations, I did a presentation last month at the Los Osos Basin Management Committee, and the video recording of that presentation is available on their website, so you can take a look at that if you want more information. So jumping in, what I'm going to talk about today is a background to the problem, the land use and hydrogeology. I'm going to summarize probable sources of nitrate to impacted wells based on the investigations conducted to date. I'm going to describe the future and ongoing investigations to better identify the source. I'm going to describe some of the possible mitigations and then provide an overview of the local agency management program requirements as they relate to Cabrillo Estates. The local agency management program, otherwise known as the LAMP, it describes the requirements for residential septic systems throughout the county, and this will make more sense at the end of the presentation. So this slide essentially lays out the problem. And can you all see my mouse moving around?
Yes.
Great. So this map on the left shows the location of wells that are impacted. The wells are shown inside this red circle. And they're wells LA8, owned by S&T Mutual Water Company, and LA9, owned by Golden State Water Company. And this plot on the right shows the nitrate concentrations on the vertical axis through time on the horizontal axis. The Golden State wells are shown by the gray circles, and the S&T well as samples are shown by the blue diamonds. And you can see the concentrations in both wells are increasing through time. The maximum contaminant level for nitrate, which is the legal limit at which nitrate can be served to customers in drinking water, is shown by this red line. So you can see that both wells, or concentrations in both wells, are approaching the maximum contaminant level and are anticipated to reach that limit in approximately 10 to 30 years. So we're trying to figure out what is causing this elevated and increasing nitrate concentration. And I shouldn't say it's just we were contacted by S&T Mutual Water Company, who is really concerned about these increasing concentrations. And I want to give them credit for some of the investigations that they themselves have funded. The investigations they funded were largely conducted by Cleith Harris. And I also just want to acknowledge the Basin Management Committee for some of the data provided in these technical investigations. So moving on, I'm presenting this plot of, or this map of land use around the impacted wells. And these are land use practices that contribute nitrogen and could be potentially sources that are causing the observed problems in the wells. So the two impacted wells are shown here, LA8 and 9 in yellow. And I'm just going to walk through these various sources. So Cabrillo Estates, shown here in red, and Martin Tract, shown here in green, both discharge to residential on-site wastewater treatment systems or septic systems. There are two commercial horse boarding facilities shown here by the East Stables that potentially contribute nitrogen via manure. Broderson Leach Field is where the wastewater treatment plant discharges nitrogen, or discharges wastewater that contains nitrogen. The nitrogen concentrations from the plant are pretty low, and so it's unlikely that this is a source that's contributing to the problem. There are three areas that were historically discharged via individual septic systems, but are now connected to the sewer, and that's Redfield Woods, Vista de Oro, and Sunset Terrace. Although they are no longer discharging wastewater, the decades of wastewater discharge that did occur likely contributed large amounts of nitrogen that still exist in the unsaturated soils and in the upper aquifer, and that nitrogen will slowly be migrating into the lower aquifer for decades to come. So these are potential sources of nitrogen. The Monarch Grove neighborhood discharged wastewater to its own wastewater plant at the golf course historically. And then the golf course itself is potentially a source of nitrogen via fertilizers applied. So there are a lot of potential sources of nitrogen impacting these wells, and teasing out which source or sources are specifically impacting the wells is tricky. The other thing to note are these blue lines or groundwater elevation contours in the upper aquifer. They're useful because they can provide an indication of groundwater flow direction. The flow direction is shown by this orange arrow. And so flow in the upper aquifer is kind of to the northwest. Now, both of these wells are screened in the lower aquifer, not the upper aquifer, but this is relevant nonetheless. So that's the land use. And then this is the last kind of technical slide I'm going to present today, but it shows the hydrogeology in the area where the impacted wells are located. So this map on the left has a transect, a red line with a J and a J prime, and that transect corresponds to this cross section on the right. There's a J and a J prime, and so this cross section on the right is conceptually a slice through the earth along this red line, showing the geologic layers and the different aquifers and the location of groundwater in this area. And so wells LA 8 and 9 are shown right here. The ground surface is shown along this black line. You've got unsaturated sediments underneath the ground surface. The water table for the upper aquifer is shown by this blue line. Then the upper aquifer, and then you've got this clay aquitard, which is a low permeability geologic unit that impedes flow. It doesn't completely restrict flow between the upper and lower, but it impedes it. And then you've got the lower aquifer. And then these two wells are screened, or they draw in water in the lower aquifer as shown by these rectangles here. And so again, like in this figure, Cabrillo Estates would be located up here. The horse boarding facilities would be located between LA 8 and 9, but into the page. And then the other sources of nitrogen would be located to the left of LA 8. And so for any of these sources for nitrate to migrate to the two impacted wells, they have to travel through some unsaturated sediment and then potentially through the upper aquifer and then through this aquitard and then to the wells. So it's a fairly long flow path. And again, it makes it tricky to figure out what the source is. So again, a complicated situation here. So this slide, I'm just going to summarize the technical work that has been done to date without going into great amount of detail. And there's been quite a bit of technical work done. So there was isotopic evaluation of nitrate sources. And this is basically looking at the chemical composition of the nitrate molecule. And those compositions have been related to nitrate from different sources. So when you know this composition, you can get a sense of what the source is. And that evaluation identified that the nitrate in the two impacted wells is either from manure or from wastewater. We know it's not fertilizer based on that isotopic evaluation. The next line of evidence was this wastewater indicator compound sampling. And this is basically sampling the wells for products that people either consume or use in their household and discharge to their residential plumbing system. That plumbing system then discharges to a leach field, and that compound would make it into groundwater. And so these are things like antibiotics, different pharmaceuticals, artificial sweeteners, household cleaning products, things like that. And so these compounds were identified in well LA 8. And so what it tells us is that there's definitely wastewater present in that well, and there may also be manure nitrogen present in that well. We can't rule that out at this time. There's been some historical numerical modeling or computer modeling to evaluate nitrate transport in the upper and lower aquifer. This modeling was done during the development of the wastewater treatment plant. And it predicted that these two wells would be impacted by nitrate from Cabrillo Estates or the horse boarding facilities. There's been some land use and nitrogen mass loading calculations. So how much nitrogen could potentially be contributed from each of these land use practices. Regional board performed inspections of the commercial horse boarding facilities to understand manure management practices and better estimate nitrogen loading. And then there's been upper and lower nitrate concentration sampling in the vicinity of the two impacted supply wells to look at the spatial distribution of nitrate outside of the supply wells to see if that can shed some light on the source. And before I go on, I just want to say that there has been a lot of work done. And although we can't definitively identify the source at this point, we are honing in and we are we are trying to get some answers here. So based on the investigations to date, the potential sources of nitrate to the impacted wells, the most likely source in the regional board's opinion are septic system discharges from Cabrillo Estates neighborhood. It's also possible that commercial horse boarding facilities are contributing to the problem. But at this time, we can't rule out the possibility that legacy nitrate from the now sewered portions of Los Osos is partially or wholly contributing to the problem. And so moving forward, the ongoing investigations are trying to better tease out which of these is the most significant source. So the additional investigations that we currently have planned or underway are additional upper and lower aquifer sampling of wells in vicinity of the two impacted supply wells. And I just want to put a plug out to say that the regional board has a free domestic well sampling program that we offer to people with domestic wells, and this can provide information on the quality of water extracted from those wells. We did send letters to homeowners in an area where we would like data from, kind of near Seahorse Lane. And so if any homeowners are on this meeting, or if anybody knows those homeowners, we encourage you to participate in this program. Again, it provides free water quality data, and those wells are located to other wells that we know are impacted, and so it's reasonable to think there are impacts to those domestic wells. And then the additional piece of evidence that we're trying to collect is numerical or computer modeling of capture zones for these two impacted supply wells. And capture zones are basically, where do these wells get their water from? Is it from an area beneath Cabrillo Estates, or is it from an area beneath now sewered portions of Los Osos? So we're hoping that we're waiting for the BMC to approve funding for this additional scope of work, and also the regional board is working on sampling some of these wells. In terms of options for mitigating the problem, it really depends on what the source of nitrate is identified. And that's the reason we're spending so much time to identify the source adequately, is we want to make sure that if we do implement some sort of mitigation, we're mitigating the right thing. So if Cabrillo Estates is identified as the primary source, then there is the ability to implement some source control to stop the nitrogen discharge. And that would be either through replacing conventional septic systems with enhanced treatment septic systems in Cabrillo Estates. These systems can reduce nitrogen by 50% or more relative to the raw wastewater. It's a significant improvement over conventional systems. Or extension of the existing sewer system into Cabrillo Estates, so that wastewater from Cabrillo would go to the wastewater treatment facility in Los Osos. If the horse boarding facilities are identified as a substantial contributor, then source control could be implemented there as well. When the regional board inspected the facilities back in November, they were accompanied by the district conservationists from the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and she had some recommendations for improving manure management practices at those facilities that would minimize the potential for nitrogen discharge. If the source of nitrate is from legacy sources, from areas that are now sewered, we're really focusing on impact management at this point, because the source control has already been implemented. The source control was the installation of the wastewater treatment plant and the collection system, and that's already been done. So really the impact management would be something like wellhead treatment for nitrate at the two impacted wells. And this is the last slide I'm going to present today. And I just want to discuss the local agency management program requirements in Cabrillo Estates. And I'm going to refer to this as the LAMP moving forward. And again, the LAMP is the document that describes septic system requirements for the entire county. It's implemented by San Luis Obispo County, and it was developed in concert between the regional board and the county the regional board essentially delegates its authority to regulate this discharge to the county. So during the development of the LAMP, there was a study that went on to look at which areas of the county potentially impacted groundwater the most from septic systems. And that study, conducted by a third-party consultant, identified Cabrillo Estates as the highest risk area in the entire county for groundwater contamination by septic systems. And for that reason, the LAMP has more stringent requirements for Cabrillo Estates than other places in the county. And so, very briefly, the main requirement that applies to Cabrillo Estates that is in excess of standard septic systems is a requirement for enhanced treatment septic systems in the event that a leach field fails. So if a leach field fails, the leach field and the existing tank need to be replaced with an enhanced treatment system. And then for all new construction, they need to be equipped with enhanced treatment systems. These enhanced treatment systems reduce total nitrogen in the discharge by 50% or more relative to the raw wastewater. That's a substantial improvement over a conventional system. But they're expensive. Cost ranges for these systems range from $30,000 to $90,000 for installation of the system, plus approximately $2,000 per year to maintain. And so part of the reason I'm explaining this is that just to let people know that this requirement exists, but also, in the event that this mitigation is implemented, these are the things that people may want to consider. And with that, Jennifer and I can take any questions that people may have and open this up for discussion.
All right, let's open it up for discussion for council members first.
I have a question. Do you have a rough timetable to wind up your studies, just approximately, so that people can expect this will be, some direction will be given either shortly or not so shortly?
Yeah, it's somewhat hard to say, in part because we won't know if additional investigations are needed until we see the results of this upcoming investigation. These investigations, all groundwater contamination investigations, tend to be iterative in nature. You do some stuff, you see what it tells you, and you see if you need more information. And so this next round of investigation was intended to be relatively low cost, low effort, in the hopes that low hanging fruit will get us where we need to be in terms of making a determination. And I think that investigation could be done by the fall of this year. So I think, maybe by the end of the year, we can be telling people, hey, we think we're ready to make a decision, or we need to do some more work here.
Okay.
Okay. And James, if you don't mind, if you could close your screen.
Sure.
Thank you, just so I can see everybody better. Thank you. Patrick, you are next up.
Thank you. I'd also like to welcome Dr. Hunter, who is here with us. She's a resident of Los Osos and also sits on the board for the Regional Water Board. So I'd like to just thank her for being here today.
Thank you.
James, when you did your presentation for the BMC, there was a question asked to you of why Cabrillo Estates was not put in the prohibition zone originally. And your answer was that originally when the prohibition zone was being decided on, the thought was that all the effluent from Cabrillo Estates was going to be going to the southwest, which it hasn't. Obviously, it's gone to the northwest more, down into the wells. And that's also borne out with the pharmaceuticals that would have been discovered there. So as you say, we do know that the nitrates are that we are getting effluent from the Cabrillo Estates. But the implication that was made then was that if you had known when the prohibition zone was being created, that's the direction of the effluent, they would have been on the prohibition zone also. So my question is, we've known now that the effluent travels in that direction. Why is it not being put in the prohibition zone and sewered? That's one question. Secondly, when you're talking about isotopic evaluation, it's been a long time since I had chemistry, but it seems to me that I remember that it can evaluate whether it's a human source or an animal source. And we probably have both sources there. One definitely coming from Cabrillo Estates, from what you've already presented. The horse one, though, you questioned, it said possibly always. Well, I don't see that it really makes any difference where we know we have two sources, possibly horse and Cabrillo Estates. You're going to be doing mitigation with those two completely differently. So it doesn't, we know that it's coming down from Cabrillo. Why don't we just go ahead, get them on the sewer and then deal with the horse one when you find out how much they actually contribute? So those are my two questions.
Thanks, Patrick. So regarding the original prohibition zone development, if I said Southwest in my presentation, I misspoke. The 1983 staff report anticipates that wastewater beneath Cabrillo Estates would flow to the west or northwest. And at that time, it was not thought that it flowed into the main Los Osos groundwater basin. And so that's why it was not included in the prohibition zone at that time. That was in 1983, 40 years ago, essentially. And so in the preceding 4 decades, we've learned a lot more about the basin and learned essentially that flow is to the north and to the main Los Osos groundwater basin. What we don't know is whether or not the wastewater concentrations from beneath Cabrillo Estates are being concentrated enough to cause the observed problem. And we don't know if they're migrating through the regional aquitard to get into the lower aquifer. So I think that is a point of uncertainty, and that's why we're continuing to do additional investigations. That's not a given, I don't think, at this point. And can you remind me your second question?
Well, all right. So even if it's going to be, we know that because of the pharmaceuticals, we know we are getting discharged from the Cabrillo Estates.
Can I stop you there?
Yes.
So the pharmaceuticals don't tell us it's Cabrillo Estates. We can't we know it's human wastewater, but that human wastewater could be from portions of Los Osos that are now connected to the sewer that have loaded the unsaturated zone and the upper aquifer with wastewater for decades, and that wastewater still exists there. So that's the issue, is we can't tell whether it's legacy nitrate or from ongoing discharges at Cabrillo Estates.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Let's go to Deborah.
Thank you, James. Thanks so much for doing this presentation. We have had a couple of presentations about this for the Cabrillo community. And I have a question, but first let me just say that we currently are under the lamp. We currently, if tree roots invade our leach field up here and the leach field fails, we must install these supplemental systems. And you have presented a cost between $30,000 and $90,000. And you and I had a conversation about, what it would cost to do a retrofit. I mean, if you're talking about a new build, of which we have very few, you're probably at the low end. But if you're doing a retrofit, it makes it much more expensive. Is that correct? Based on your experience?
Yeah, I mean, Jennifer and I have both reached out to consultants throughout our region that are installing these enhanced treatment systems. And our understanding is that the retrofit, so replacing a system for an existing house, tends to be much more expensive than putting one in from the outset.
And then the other thing is that these systems do not take care of these other antibiotics and hormones and pharmaceuticals, et cetera. It's only just dealing with the nitrates, correct?
Yeah, I mean, they're designed to treat nitrates. There could be some, ancillary treatment for other things, but that's not demonstrated.
Okay. Thank you, James. I just do want to mention that Mark Zimmer is here. He's representing Golden State. He obviously the Golden State well is the well that supplies water for Cabrillo Estates. So I don't know, Mark, if you are interested in answering questions or if you're just here to listen, but I thought I'd offer that opportunity to you.
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Deborah. I'm here to answer questions, listen, and yeah, be part of the conversation. So whatever's most helpful.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Larry R., you're up.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just thinking that with the rate of increase in the nitrates in those wells, it seems like the legacy nitrates wouldn't be loading it at a level that would be increased in at such a high rate. Is that accurate?
I think, I mean, we can't say for sure that's the case, but I think that's a good thought. I mean, something we've thought about ourselves. I don't think you can use that as a line of evidence to say, hey, it's for sure this source and not that source, but certainly it's, it's a piece of the puzzle to consider.
Yeah, it just seems like you wouldn't have the head pressure to, to get it there since there's nothing behind it anymore, that it's just unsaturated, like you said.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Any other questions from council members? No. All right, from the community, we have Jose Torres. I'll ask you to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I had a question. First of all, Mr. Bishop, thank you very much for the informative presentation on this. I live up in Cabrillo Estates and fairly new homeowner here. One of the things that I want to clarify with you is the fact that Cabrillo Estates is not necessarily, I mean, we know that it contributes to some of the nitrate loading in the groundwater. And that's why you're doing these investigations. Certainly there are some stables and horse stables below us, and also to the south of us, there's horse properties beyond LA 8 and up Petro Road. So are those being also evaluated in this process? The other thing too, you mentioned these new septic systems, and they're general the way you mentioned it. What's the statistics or what's the evidence that these actually reduce nitrates 50%? Is there a study? Is there a certain make or certain system that we can take a look at as homeowners to see what the evidence proves for these systems? Those are my questions currently.
Thanks, Jose, I appreciate that. So regarding the other parcels that have horses on them, they were considered early on as potential sources based on our review of the scientific literature, discussion with the district conservationists. It's thought that the number of horses on those parcels and the parcel size probably makes those low risk for significantly contributing to the problem, right? So part of what we consider is the spatial density of loading. If you've got a lot of horses on a very small footprint, that's riskier than few horses on a large spatial footprint. And then with respect to the certification or studies for nitrogen reduction. Yeah, we only allow installation of systems that have third-party certifications, such as NSF. I think the one we require, and Jennifer, you may be able to correct me, is NSF 90 or something like that. It's anyway, there's a third
I'd have to
party
look it up. Yeah.
company that is certified that these systems meet at least 50% nitrogen reduction. So yes, they're very well studied. They've been put in all over the region from Santa Cruz to Santa Barbara County, actually all over the state. And those systems submit monitoring that we look at and make sure they're complying with the requirements.
Okay. The last question I had for you in regards to the nitrate loading, being a former hazardous materials technician and being up on chemistry, is there anything that we can do to neutralize the nitrates that, something that we could add to the septic tanks to maybe reduce the nitrate concentration?
Yeah, unfortunately, no. I mean, you can remove nitrate, but it's complicated, and that's essentially what these enhanced treatment systems do. I mean, if it was a simple fix, people wouldn't have to shell out thousands of dollars for these enhanced treatment systems.
Okay.
And if someone can figure that out, they'll be a very rich person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you for your time and answering those questions, and certainly education on what not to put down your septic system is probably an interim help, for this problem. But certainly this 30,000 to 90,000 cost is quite a shock. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for your comment about maintaining your septic system. I think that's a really good one for everybody in Cabrillo Estates. Treat your septic systems kindly, your leach fields kindly. Don't let them fail. Follow all the recommendations for those things.
Thank you.
And if I might add one more thing about the supplemental treatment systems and the 50% reduction, is that one of the challenges is that 50% reduction could still mean, discharging, say, 30 milligrams per liter. If you're, think about typical wastewater coming from your home might be about 60. So if you reduce it by 50, you're at 30. And you compare that to how well the Los Osos plant is reducing nitrogens. I mean, they're getting single digits. They're removing much, much more nitrogen. So it's possible that even if today we waved a magic wand and we put supplemental systems out there that did the 50%, and if that is the source of the problem, that might not be enough to actually fix the problem. So that's something to also think about when we're thinking about these two different things, is that they're not necessarily equal in terms of the reduction in nitrogen.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things is if you're in a room full of cyanide, even if it's 1%, you're still getting some cyanide in your system. So, yeah, something very, very relevant here. Thank you.
Okay. And one of the things I want to bring up, because I also live in Cabrillo, is the fact that even if we do these mini wastewater treatment plants for now, the county and the water board may come back later and say, 50% is not enough. You're going to have to join the sewer. So, that's going to be an option that Cabrillo is going to need to look at, is whether they want to go the sewer route, which will be cheaper, or each of these houses that when they're septic has an issue, will have to get a little wastewater treatment plant. All right, let's go to.
My last comment to that is that you're absolutely right. I think we're kicking the can down the road with this. I think the eventual solution to this problem is becoming part of the sewer system.
Thank you, Jose. Let's go
Trish,
to
Trish, we
Lindsay.
have a question or a comment on the chat from Jean. Oh, it's just to me. How about if I just read it? Okay, so Jean, I don't know where you are, but Jean says, why not plan for a sewer hookup rather than each property doing a retrofit?
And that will be discussed during this topic.
Sorry.
Okay,
All right,
let's
carry on.
go to Lindy. I'm asking you to unmute.
There we go. Thank you. One thing I learned early on in the sewer education process that I've spent 25 years on was that horses are the largest contributor of nitrates in our basin. So I'll just leave that out there. But I totally agree with Trish and a couple of the comments that I think we need a analysis of the cost difference between each individual property putting up these on-site improvements to their septics. They're very tricky. They involve a lot of problem solving quite often. So it makes total sense to do a cost analysis to just go ahead and hook Cabrillo up to the sewer, which will then, I'm sure, will make a huge impact on the amount of nitrates that and it will be continuing for years, but I think now is the time to do it. I also don't want to see too many years spent in studies, because I think that comment that the LAMP studies for the county said that Cabrillo Estates is the highest risk in the county. That pretty well rang the bell for me that says, yes, let's go ahead and arrange to get them hooked up to the sewer. And I just wanted, the other comment was, even if we are able to take the nitrates out with these updated systems for septics, I just don't think it's right to continue putting 50% of the house, to be putting the chemicals and antibiotics and all the other parts of a household waste system into those wells. So for quality purposes alone, I think hooking up to the sewer will get that waste out to do the best treatment that we can as we go along with trying to remedy having good water come out of this. I understand that 50% of the drugs that people take go out into the sewer. So the body only absorbs so much. So it's a continuing problem that I'd also like to address along with nitrates. Thanks.
Thank you, Lindy. Okay, Annie and Gary, I'm going to unmute you. You have to unmute yourself now. I asked you to unmute. So push the.
Got it. Hi, Trish, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Some of the questions I had have been answered in this last give and take. The one question, he has a dollar figure for these many many things. And has anybody looked at all about what the hooking to the sewer would look like cost-wise?
Yes.
Right. Go ahead, James.
Thanks for your question. It's a good one, and it's one that everybody's wondering. And the short answer is no. There's been no real in-depth study to look at what the cost is to extend the collection system to Cabrillo Estates. Part of the reason for that is that's going to be a resource-intensive process. It's going to cost money. It's going to take some staff time to do. And we aren't there yet with the source investigation to say definitively that Cabrillo Estates is the source. So if that should come to pass, that we decide it is Cabrillo, then at that time there will be some an engineering study to evaluate what it's going to cost. I think it's certainly going to be at least as much as the cost was for the now sewered portions of Los Osos. So I think you can estimate that as the floor of the cost, and then
you want to go back, please?
I don't know how high it may go.
All right, thank you. I'm going to ask John and Carla to please unmute.
Yeah, go ahead and take it down.
You good?
Yep.
Yeah, James, thank you for the feedback and the information. My question is, I guess, twofold. One is the comment that you just made to Gary and Andy about it is not definitive that Cabrillo Estates is the largest contributor to nitrates. More studies need to be made. And secondly, for the graph that you showed, the line for A and B was fairly consistently going up. And then when everybody went on sewers, all of a sudden 240 houses contributes to a growth in that line that dramatic. That's hard to understand, frankly.
Thanks for your comment.
All right, Larry.
Well, it's a question. Why would the assumption be that we're the reason when that line was going up when the sewer system was in? And then all of a sudden 200, do you believe that 240 houses are actually contributing to that level of growth in nitrates into those wells?
I think it's certainly possible. And, you know, I would refer you to the Basin Management Committee presentation I gave last month, which describes all the technical investigations that have been conducted to date. I think the biggest one is the groundwater flow direction. So we know that the groundwater flow direction in both the upper and lower aquifers is to the north or northwest. And that kind of flow direction would migrate wastewater from the now sewered portions of Los Osos away from the impacted wells. And it would migrate wastewater from beneath Cabrillo Estates towards those wells. So I think the flow direction is the most convincing piece of evidence for me. However, that there are uncertainties associated with that as well.
Yeah, because it seems like there's still a fair amount of uncertainty about how much legacy nitrates are contributing to this. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, I don't. Agreed. Yeah, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. Let's go to Larry.
Thank you. Yeah, actually responding to a few comments, especially the one that was just made, you know, it's very well possible that Cabrillo Estates has been leaching into this area for as long as it's been there, and it's just now getting to a level because of the length of time that Cabrillo Estates has been there that it's now starting to show up. And it doesn't really mean that the other parts of the community we don't even know if the other parts of the community were affecting those wells or not. So it could be just because of the length of time and a constant flow that's increasing these wells. The other comment was something Lindy said was that, you know, we might not even know if everybody that needs to replace their septic systems in Cabrillo Estates is going to be able to do that. I used to design septic systems, and each property has its own issues. And some of the properties, when they go to have to redesign, they may find that there isn't the room or methods to do it. You know, you need a lot of room, there's setbacks and all this stuff. So, you know, you may not even be able to put some of these new systems in. So that's always an issue. And I think the other one was the pharmaceuticals and stuff. You know, she mentioned that we don't want them going into the groundwater. Well, even our sewage water going to the treatment plant isn't removing these pharmaceuticals, and we're pumping them back into the groundwater. So, you know, we don't even test for these pharmaceuticals on a regular basis, and we're definitely not removing them at the sewer treatment plant, and we are putting them back in the water. So, you know, not quite sure how, you know, whether it goes to the plant or goes into a septic system, if it's going to make a huge bit of difference.
Thank you, Larry. James, thank you so much. Great report. I really appreciate it. It looks like we have one more question, and then we do need to move on. Thank you. I'm going to ask the Kelson family to unmute.
Hey there, this is Keith Kelson, CEG. I want to say, James, wonderful presentation. That was great. It was a really good mix of both layman information and technical mix. And thank you. I have to say I had multiple questions, and your last comment about check out the BMC technical presentation. I have not seen that. I wasn't aware of it. And I think you answered most of them. But I want to make sure that everybody else on the call understands that in groundwater, there's multiple different parameters that affect how we get bad stuff at a certain spot, like at the wellhead. There's the source itself, multiple sources. There's the amounts, there's the direction of flow, and there's the rate of flow. And I think we danced around the fourth one more than we should. I just wanted to ask you, the question is this, do we have any idea on the time component or the rates of the point sources, presumably there's many, to the wellhead? And that might solve a lot of the questions that folks were posing about legacy, and it comes from here, it comes from there. Let me restate my question to be clear. Do you have any information on flow rates for the lower aquifer? Over.
We don't. I think. Are you asking whether we can calculate the travel time from different sources to the impacted wells? Is that kind of what you're getting at? Because there is a numerical model for the basin, and so that has the ability to calculate, hydraulic conductivities and velocities for, different portions of the basin and the lower aquifer in particular. That's based on some field investigation, some pump testing that has occurred at different portions of the basin. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think it's probably in your BMC technical presentation. There is a way to date groundwater, as we all know, so you could get at a rate in that way, or you could use the numerical modeling, which has a lot of uncertainty as well. Over.
Thank you. And James, again, thank you so much. Great presentation, and I'm sure we're going to have follow-up questions for you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, next on the agenda, we have Supervisor Bruce Gibson. Welcome. And I'm asking you to unmute.
And finally, I can master the technology to do that. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure to be with you. I caught most of James' presentation and have had direct discussions with him and Jennifer and other members of the board. A lot of work yet to be done before any definitive conclusions can be drawn. As I say, a pleasure to be with you. I have I've been a little bit late to the party. Today has been a tour of the combined old and new District 2. I've visited San Luis Obispo, San Simeon, Heritage Ranch, came through Tascadero on my way home from Heritage Ranch. The only place I missed was San Miguel, but I was up there last night for their advisory council meeting. So one thing I can conclude is we live in a beautiful county. I'm just, what a joy, to have my commute on Highway 1, 46, and 41. It's pretty darn cool. So let me just touch on a couple of items, and then happy to take questions. Of course, as always, there's a ton of stuff going on in the county. The one that you might be, most recently aware of is the redrawing of the supervisorial districts. Board took action on April 18th per the settlement agreement we reached with the plaintiffs in the lawsuit over the redistricting. And the court ordered us to set aside the adopted map, the patent map, and to adopt a California Election Code compliant map. 3 maps were identified by agreement as compliant, and the board did choose among them map A, which is essentially exactly the district boundaries that were in place before this whole adventure started. So when we redistricted in 2011, we came up with the map that we have been operating on since until we got to 2021. Map A is with insignificant changes the same as the 2011. You'll remember the conversation in the redistricting. There was no need to redraw district boundaries. Population balance was adequate. Communities of interest were preserved. And so we are back, we are back in a stable position. I think that this probably settles it. And we will be moving forward. The 2024 elections will be run on map A, on the familiar map, but only districts 1, 3, and 5 will be up for election at that point. So unfortunately, Los Osos will have to wait till 2026 for its next chance to vote for supervisor. You can look at that two ways. Certain communities like Atascadero have been subjected to 3 supervisorial campaigns in 4 years with all the attendant, how shall we say, hoopla. Whereas Los Osos will unfortunately have to wait. So that's that. In practical terms, the redrawing of the districts changes nothing. I've been proud to continue to represent Los Osos with Mr. Fixler's help, and we'll continue to carry on. We will continue to offer services elsewhere in the let's call it the temporarily new 2nd district. I will be offering my services to Heritage Ranch and San Miguel and Atascadero, and as we've discussed, that's anybody's prerogative to deal with any supervisor that they find helpful. Topic 2, as you probably read the press reports, that our CAO, Mr. Wade Horton, resigned about a month ago, and that is something that has sort of changed our priorities of things to do internal to the organization. But you may also have read the press reports that we have found an outstanding interim CAO, County Administrative Officer, within District 2. John Nylon is an individual who served as a county employee 32 years in Kern County, including 7 or 8 as the CAO there. Happens now to be a resident of Cambria, a member of their, or was until today, I guess, a member of their advisory council and their community healthcare district board. But he is an extraordinarily experienced, very personable. He's going to be a great asset to the county as we stabilize our situation, get ready to consider our budget for the next fiscal year, and then look at the organization with an eye toward how we recruit a new permanent CAO, which will happen in the next few months. Mr. Nylon's first day is going to be Monday. You'll be on the dais on Tuesday. And I'm really looking forward to working with him. He's going to be great. On Tuesday, third topic on Tuesday, we will be having a couple of significant presentations. One on storm damage and the repair of storm damage caused by this extraordinary winter's rain events. Public Works is going to give us the rundown. Last I heard, there were over 200 sites throughout the county, roads in particular, that have been damaged in one way or another, from complete closure to more minor efforts that will eventually, will need repair and eventually will be eligible for FEMA reimbursement, which is a good thing. And then the other big thing is a report on our and an update on our efforts on homelessness. And that is a big issue, obviously a top priority, a top budget priority for this board. And we are going to be making a significant increase in our effort there in partnership with our cities. There are a lot of projects in the works to provide extra shelter and to provide services for those who find themselves in one state of being homeless or another, whether they're unsheltered or otherwise faced with that very difficult situation. So That is going to feed into our budget conversations, which the budget hearings occur in the second week of June. We have a slight gap in the budget to fill, as well as interest in expenditures to increase our efforts on homelessness. So there's going to be some challenging decisions to make, and fortunately, we do have healthy reserves, and we'll be talking about how we approach that problem again on Tuesday. Lots of other stuff: community choice energy, water issues. The list goes on, and that's what I love about this job. So at this point, I will cease and be happy to take questions.
Supervisor Gibson, any updates you can give us on the county budget review and how it's going to impact Los Osos, or if it will impact Los Osos?
I can do that right now. So here's how we budget. We create what we call the status quo budget. That is that we estimate what it's going to cost to do exactly the same things in the coming fiscal year, which starts July 1, as we're doing in the current fiscal year. We get that estimate of cost, and we then take our estimate of revenues. And in that circumstance right now, we're seeing about a $5 million deficit. Our expected revenues are not going to meet our expected costs by about $5 million. So plus, we have a number of augmentations, new spending we want to accomplish. Much of it surrounds homelessness. Others that's going to be recommended include some support for our county clerk recorder because of the incredible pressure that office is under as regards elections. That adds another $2.9 million. So again, let's put this in perspective. Our budget total is about $750 million, $750 million. We have to figure out how to close a gap of about $7.9 million. We got two basic approaches to dealing with that. One of them is to stop doing things that we've been doing or cut our programs. That, our typical approach to budget balancing is something we would do to a certain extent. And then we have reserves built up through the pandemic. And so that's the key discussion coming forward, is to decide how much structural cutting, as we call it, and how much are we going to tap our reserves as we look also not only at this year, but at the year following, which appears that it will likely have a significant budget deficit as well. So that's our approach. None of this is specific to Los Osos that I can think of immediately. It's the standard struggle of trying to live within our means.
Okay. Let me open it up to council members. Andrea.
Thanks, Trish, and thanks, Bruce, for that. I have two questions. One, what is the status of the homeless area at Kansas or Oklahoma or whatever it's called at this point? And then the second question is code enforcement. When I used to be a reporter, it had to do a report every month at the AVAC, the Avila Valley Advisory Committee, which is similar to ours. There was always generally a code enforcement person actually there and answering questions on code enforcement. And I don't know if you're going to wait till the Tree and Landscape Committee report, but we had some really significant issues with code enforcement and tree trimming over the last couple months. And we have had no success in getting a hold of county code enforcement. So maybe you can help us with that.
So first of all, I'm afraid as soon as I get through questions, I'm going to beg your indulgence and log off, as I have an early and extensive day tomorrow. But on the matter of code enforcement, if any member of the community or the advisory council is having trouble getting in touch with code enforcement, please don't hesitate to contact our office. We'll get that in the hands of Blake, who is not with us tonight because he apparently is going to become 1 year older on Saturday, and so he's taken a couple of days off to celebrate that fact. But you certainly know that if you contact the office, we can facilitate communication. I don't expect that at advisory councils we are, as a standard practice, going to have a report from code enforcement, but that if there are specific questions, we can make sure one way or another through your liaison that we can get you answers on that. And then, I'm sorry, refresh me on the other topic, Andrea.
Kansas, Oklahoma,
Oh,
homeless.
Kansas, Oklahoma, yeah, sorry. The messaging on what's going on there was not handled very skillfully. Kansas, Oklahoma, we have been having a series of challenges in trying to find a contracting entity to manage the site. There are also a significant number of challenges in taking care of a site that size. We had at the height close to 60 vehicles, 85 people or thereabouts. So where we are right now is looking for alternatives to that site as a safe parking place for RVs and cars. To my knowledge, we are not taking in any new vehicles, and we are working with the current residents to find them a stable source of housing in one form or another. And that's as varied as the individuals who make that up. It was announced that we were going to close Oklahoma Avenue, or Oklahoma, Kansas, Oklahoma site. And some people took that to mean that there was going to be a hard shut off and we were going to essentially evict people back to the streets. And as that decision got made within the county organization, I made it real clear to our staff that we can't simply cease the operation on some day and leave people high and dry. So the process right now is transition. It's not clear to me what the future of that site is. We're again the intent of that site when we set it up was to be a temporary situation for the individuals who came to stay there. And we were working hard to move them into permanent housing. And we have done so for 40 or 50 individuals, including, I think, about 4 people within the last couple of days. I characterize, you may see in the Trib, Supervisor Paulding and I were out there yesterday talking face to face with the residents. I do not consider Oklahoma a failure, as has been characterized by some. At the same time, it has not achieved all the goals that we were hoping and expecting that it would. So we're working on alternatives. We're going to be discussing all of that on Tuesday, and we'll, we've got to up our game on homelessness. That's the number one issue in front of us and every county in the state.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, you said that there's obviously there's a deficit and it had to do with we had a reserve for the pandemic. I'm just curious what caused that, because as a business owner and as a resident, there was a significant reduction in my costs for a while. So I'm curious, do you know what the reason why we were able to build up during the pandemic?
A whole bunch of items, Kristen. Costs go up. That's key. In terms of being competitive, we have negotiated with our unions that represent county employees. We have given them raises. That raises our cost of doing business. Supplies and services go up, and so we do basically a CPI estimate. We look at what extra salary costs we have incurred. We look at all the things that go into cost. At the same time, we know our revenues are constrained. The economy drives sales tax and transient occupancy tax. Property tax is constrained by Prop 13. Even in wildly accelerating markets, we only get a 2% increase on assessed valuation. So that limits how fast that and just what happens is that the revenues are not going up as fast as the costs.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, let's go.
Can I ask one question? Is it, Bruce, regards the American Rescue money? I've never heard of a summary of, do we still have some of that? Is that part of your reserves? And can that figure into any future expenditure?
There is some COVID relief money that is part of our reserves, and it can factor in. of the 50, and that's one thing that's on my list, is to get, at some point, we should get an accounting of exactly how we've spent our American Rescue Plan or ARPA money. But the thing about it is, we always have to remember that's one-time money. We have accumulated a pretty substantial reserve based on reimbursements from the federal government. But that, depending on how we marshal it, that might be gone in a year or two if we spend it too quickly. So we've got to be careful about how we tap that one-time money. We tend to look at that as one-time funding. So that's part of the discussion as we get into the budget hearings, to make sure the recommended budget's going to be published, I think, on May 16th, and our budget hearings start on June 12th. So we'll have that exact discussion.
Great.
Hey, let's go to the community. We have Jeff. I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, Bruce. Compared to homelessness and losing a lot of water due to contamination and a variety of things, this may seem insignificant. But I guess the question is, where do we stand on our library? And the reason I'm bringing that up, I noticed you're currently going to be voting on engineering a new library deal at, I think, Arroyo Grande. We came up, we spent a lot of time deciding, do we want to do a library somewhere else? Do we want to retrofit ours? I think we came to a conclusion. So it seems like we should be getting close to engineering, and I see one other one's going forward. Where are we?
So yeah, that's a very fair question. The remodel, it's actually a remodel at the Arroyo Grande Library that addresses a couple of safety issues, some ADA issues, and I can't remember what all else. It was put forward as a had to do to keep the current branch going and serving its purpose. You're absolutely right. It's again also on my list, and it's not insignificant to talk to Chris Barnacle, our library director, about where we are. There is some funding available, potentially, for, we're looking at how we finance it. And, the Friends of the Los Osos Library have done an amazing job collecting a huge amount of money. I'm well aware that we should be executing on the plan that we have discussed with the community. So let me have a think about that, and we'll get back to you here by next month for sure.
Great.
All right, let's go to Lindy. I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, Bruce. Yeah, I have a couple questions with the upcoming budget setup that you'll be discussing. I would like to ask, I know this is rather uncomfortable, but is Public Works and planning, have they taken major direction and become understaffed? I heard that through several people from the bicycle committee discussing the fact that it's gotten to be kind of a problem because we have not replaced employees and we've had many retire and leave. That concerns me a lot because that's the blood that keeps the county running, is as long as we have enough people that are trained and able to address our issues, we have a chance to participate and have a balanced community. So that's one question, if we're understaffed and how bad it might be. As far as Oklahoma, we just got a report that 1.2 million was spent for a year and a half of running that. That's almost like $100,000 a month. Say it's $80,000 a month. I cannot comprehend how that money was spent. And therefore, I'll leave it at my comment that I think Oklahoma is not an experiment. It is the first step that we needed to have to begin housing people that are not going to get into the housing that doesn't exist. So I wonder if there's any consideration to make Animal Services Building become a central area and reduce the amount of people if that was the problem. But I think going off and looking at other alternatives isn't going to make anything better very fast. And my last issue was on the code enforcement. Again, I think out here, it feels like the Wild West. Code enforcement has not been interactive, is maybe a nice way to put it. And I will continue to work with Blake, I guess, to see what it will take to have them consider us as important as the rest of the county. So those are my three. Thanks.
Okay, well, I'll register both your code enforcement and your comments on Oklahoma as comments, and understand. As to staffing, the county is understaffed. Yeah, and in every department, I believe, suffers from that. And it's not just our county; it's every county in California struggles with workforce right now. In normal times, we would expect to run a vacancy rate in our staffing of about 5%. And right now we are, at last I heard, we're approaching 15% vacancy rate in the county. And that's just, that's again, not necessarily peculiar to public sector. The private sector is struggling in recruiting staff as well. And that's one of the strange things post-pandemic, where we have an economy that there's a question as to the future of this economy. The nature of the economy is questionable going forward. There's a lot of debate on both sides of the argument. And I should have studied economics and become an economist, because you can argue any side of any question 6 ways to Sunday and never be held accountable for it. But in the face of an uncertain economy, we're seeing near record low unemployment. And that's because there's a certain number of folks who left the workforce. So recruit and retain workforce is a huge issue in the state. Planning suffers from it. Our admin office suffers from it. Public Works is doing okay, but every county faces the problem.
Thank you. Any other questions for Supervisor Gibson?
Yes, I do.
Patrick?
But real quick, because it wasn't answered, Trish, we had a comment from the public originally when we first started asking about our budget and our roads, and you said that Bruce would be covering that. So Bruce, our roads in our county in a lot of areas are third world, and we're just wondering what does the budget hold for our road maintenance and improvements?
Well, road maintenance will be funded at essentially the levels that it has been funded for the last several years. When we're in cut budgets, with public safety being our #1 priority, and homelessness, mental health, and housing identified as our immediate needs, we're not going to be putting any extra money into road maintenance. But we're not cutting road maintenance either. And the reason for that is that the way road maintenance is funded interacts with the state, and what we have to do is put a certain amount of funding to road maintenance. And I want to say it's $6 million, but I'm not completely sure of that number, in order to draw down another large chunk of state funding. If we don't put what's called our maintenance of effort funding into it, we don't get the state money. So we are continuing to do that. We get some highly leveraged funds, but we're not going to be adding to we're not going to be adding to the roads budget, because we got other things that are pressing needs. And as to the conditions of the road, the Public Works Department made a decision some years ago to focus our road maintenance on the most heavily trafficked roads. And if you actually look at what's called the Pavement Condition Index, or the PCI, on heavily traveled roads, the condition is actually very good. We tend to, I think our target is 65 out of 100. And our heavily trafficked roads are in urban areas are average well above 65. Some lightly traveled rural roads, yeah, have not been attended to in terms of their surfacing. Safety is always the first priority. If there's a safety issue on a road, no matter how heavily or lightly traveled it is, people, we attack that. But on average, our road conditions has been fairly flat. We're not making progress. I wish we could, but given the press of other issues, we're not gonna be able to for the foreseeable.
Okay, Supervisor Gibson, one last question from Kristen.
Mine's just a follow-up on that, actually, because I've been traveling a lot of roads lately, just like back roads, and I've seen a lot of storm damage. And I'm wondering, do we have emergency funding to replace issues that, like Turry Road? Yeah, but like outside the county areas too, outside Los Osos.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking about it. We've already advanced $4 million out of reserves to start doing storm damage repair. Again, reimbursable on roads. Another $2 million advanced out of reserves to take care of damage to parks. Public Works just told me the other day we need another $12 million to really attack the repair that we need. Again, well over 90% of that should be FEMA reimbursable, and so we'll be talking about that on Tuesday.
I think the question the person asked was about during the sewer, a lot of our roads were messed up pretty bad, and we were promised within about 3 or so years that they would be repaired. So these are some of the non-heavily used ones, but now it's been about 7 years and they're still in heavily disrepair, and that was from the sewer work. So, you know, did any of the money come from the sewer for this and not the general budget?
To my knowledge, any road that was damaged by the sewer was repaired. And you know, there also we'd have to look at exactly what road we're talking about. There are county maintained roads and roads that are not county maintained, but there was a specific special allocation to our road maintenance fund post sewer to basically put a surface on every road that the sewer touched.
All right. Okay, we do need to move on. Thank you so much, Supervisor
Yes.
Gibson. We
Good to
appreciate you being here.
Good. Thanks, Tris. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Let's move on to a very quick CSD report. Who do we have tonight from CSD?
Is it Chuck? Chuck, are you doing the report?
Okay, I'm asking you to unmute.
Oh, you're still muted.
How about now?
Yep,
Sounds
now
good.
you're fine.
There we go. Okay. Budgeting. July 1st is also our budget year, so we're planning May 4th, we'll be starting the adjustments and hopefully adopting a new budget for next year in our June meeting. It's been a scramble with everything that's gone on this spring, but the fortunate thing is that some of the grants that we had applied for are starting to kick in for the wells that we are building, and we had budgeted for those without grants, and so the grants are kicking in, and that extra cash flow is allowing us to manage the emergency things that have been happening, which leads me to the Cabrillo Basin repairs. Emergency repairs are almost complete. We should be wrapping things up next week and getting the equipment off site within the next week or two. Tomorrow morning between 9 and 11, the K-rail on Petro Valley Road is scheduled for removal. That'll take some road closures. So if you have plans to travel Petro Valley Road, your morning commute between 9 and 11, you might want to leave early because there'll be some road closures there to get the K-rail off Petro Valley Road. We recently did an assessment of the fire station. It was built in the 60s and 70s. We weren't sure about the structural integrity. The report came back with a good finding in net terms. There's some updating regarding the mechanical and the plumbing and the electrical systems and just the layout and the functioning that we're going to be updating, but we don't need to replace the building. We don't need to look for another location. That's a big bit of good news for us. The program Seawell, we're building another a well, up above the Van Beurden building. It was that South Bay Boulevard there, Los Osos Valley Road, Bay Oaks. We've led a contract to start the transmission line from the well down to our distribution system down along Napomo Avenue. We're going to be finally outfitting that well within the next 6 months or so. So we hope to have that online by the end of the year, a new well, which will take some of the pressure off of the wells on the west side of the basin. And that's basically the news for us. I'll take any questions.
Chuck, I have one real quick.
Sure.
When you're closing the road, Pacho, which is going to be Pacho and Rodman, basically. In the future, is there any way you could let Cabrillo know that is our only entrance and exit from our community of 300 homes?
Yeah, it would be nice if we had a little earlier notice on that. I just found out today. This is a kind of a rare thing. We don't do much road work out there. But yes, we'll try and keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's really hard when there's only one exit.
Absolutely. It's a critical spot there, that little jog in the road.
Yeah, very dangerous little jog in the road. Okay, Larry.
Yeah, hi, Chuck. And maybe this question is also for Golden State if Mr. Zimmerman is still on. Our winter, we had so much good rain that, I hadn't turned on my sprinkler set, my outside watering for, a good 3 months or so. And I found how much less water I use. So basically got a really good understanding of what my indoor use was. And I know that we've always been estimating that, but it sure seems like with this last event that we had with all the rain, could be able to come up with a pretty good estimate of indoor use. I'm wondering if the water companies can look at that information and report on it. I was going to ask this at the BMC, but the BMC didn't meet this month. Thank you.
Larry, that's an amazing question because that's been something that we've talked about repeatedly this winter. This is the year that we can establish a baseline indoor water use. The numbers were way below 50 gallons per person per day this past month or so. This is the year that I think we can finally really establish that baseline, which may apply to sewer rates and everything else. So I think this is the year that we have a handle on how much water we use indoors and outdoors, because anybody that watered outdoors this winter, you were wasting your money.
Yeah.
Mr. Zimmer, did you want to respond to that?
Okay, I'm asking you to unmute.
Yes, thank you for the inquiry. Yeah, we've been looking at that as a water company also. Definitely want to take advantage of this time. One of the things I want to offer is that the flume device. I know the flume device has been out in Los Osos community for some time, but right now we have a rebate program. It's actually an offering. We just went door to door. I don't know if anybody was able to take advantage of that, and we're offering free flume devices. So that is probably the best way to really determine the indoor water use individually, if you're curious about your water use on an individual basis. But just community-wide, the planning, I don't know if Claire's on, but we're doing a project to look at the indoors in the retrofit program. And so that has also been a gathering of all the purveyors in the water use and the indoor water use component of that. So we should get some updated data. I don't know if that'll reflect this actual storm event because the data was collected prior to the storm, but they are trying to come up with that indoor water use, because I know that's been a question out in the community. So you want to know your individual water use, you can contact us for a flume device. And community-wide, I think working through planning and Claire in their current program they have is probably the best avenue for that.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
have to say, I installed the flume and it's just fantastic. And I wish everybody that could would put one of those things in. But from what I understand, not every water meter allows that. And
Yeah,
I also, yes, it's amazing.
I'm sorry, Larry. I was just
When
gonna
you-
say,
Oh,
they made improvements on the flume, so there, we did have some compatibility issues with certain meters. But from what I understand, we've, working with Flume, been able to take care of that. So those issues should not be out there the way they originally were when we first rolled out the program. So when we first rolled out the program, we did have some issues with it, but I think it's been resolved.
oh, excellent.
Thank you very
Can I
much.
just jump on this real quick? And if you, anybody knows people with small children, please make them take advantage of this, as my twins run the water and I don't notice it and I find it immediately with Flume. So like, I'm telling you, like, please go use it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I had guests and I couldn't believe how much water was used in my house.
Okay, let's wrap up the CSD report. We have one, Lindy's got to be super fast question. We've got to move on. It's already almost 9 o'clock and we have half the agenda. So I've asked you to unmute, Lindy.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think Flume is fantastic. I don't think the community and maybe a lot of people that are in the meeting right now know what it is, but if a quick discussion from Mark would, or from Chuck would help us all be encouraged to get one. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's, thank you very much, Chuck. Let's move on to the Chamber of Commerce report. Jim.
Yeah, just real quick redundancy here. Kristen did a nice job in the newsletter talking about the chamber event coming up. I want to save the date. It's the annual awards dinner on June 3rd. Excuse me, on June 3rd at the community center. It's a sit-down dinner, $75. We'll be honoring 1 citizen of the year, 2 volunteers of the year, and 3 businesses of the year. More information about tickets will be forthcoming.
Thank you. All right, great report. Thank you, Jim. Now we're open to public comments for items not on the agenda. Every speaker gets 3 minutes. Do we have any community comments tonight? If so, raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any hands.
I know there's a couple people who've shown up to make comments.
Well, I don't see any raised hands.
Oh, there we have
here's
one hand.
Lisa, I'm asking you to unmute. And you have 3 minutes and there's no discussion.
Yes, good evening. I'm Lisa Shan and I live in this community of Los Osos. I'm a retired science teacher and I own and ride horses. And I'm here tonight kind of as a spokesperson for the Los Osos equestrian community and our concern over the loss of the use of a long-time existing corridor and this trail in the Morro Dunes Ecological Reserve. It's behind Highland Drive. And this corridor follows the proposed fire break that separates homes from that area called Morro Dunes Ecological Reserve. And it provides safe access to the coast and Montaña de Oro for many, many barns. I've ridden this trail for 32 years and I know people have ridden it for over 50. And around 1998, as part of the Estero Bay land use element, this multi-use corridor was established that passes through what is now called the Morro Dunes Eco Reserve. The intention of that corridor was to enable a trail to provide access from the east side of town to the coast, keeping us community members, hikers, walkers, dog walkers, horses, safe from traveling the streets, as well as supporting possible fuel break for the community. We've used it peacefully, horses, hikers, for as long as I can remember. But as part of the Habitat Conservation Plan, no horse signs have been put on all our trails. We have been completely cut off access to our safe corridor. This has riders having to ride the streets, and we have to cross Pacheco Valley at Rodman. I'm there the other day with a young rider, my horse, and I'm in the middle of the road waving my hands because cars won't stop. So it's a blind curve there too. In summary, because I know it's late, everybody's tired. The Los Osos equestrian community is just looking for solutions. We're just requesting at least access to our longtime existing multi-use trail corridor. On the 25th of May, we get to make a 10-minute PowerPoint presentation where we can explain this more. And we're hoping for some type of flashing crosswalk at Rodman and Peso. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Next up is George H. I'm asking you to unmute.
Hello. Yes, I want to go back to the Cabrillo Estates and the nitrates issue where the chart was shown where there's all of a sudden been a huge spike in nitrates in the wells around us, and the fact that there's 240 residences was quoted in community up here. And what I would like to know is how many residences are in the legacy area. It looks like it encompasses most of West Los Osos. So things were brought up about a huge spike when this happened and the sewer going online. There's things there that are not adding up and are, plus all the rain we just had. It seems like it's a knee-jerk reaction to all of a sudden impose something draconian to say everybody must. I mean, it's $14 million for the people up here to pay for their individual septics to be upgraded, given the estimates that were there. I think this really does require a much lengthier time to view so many variables that have changed to really understand what's happening before some legislative action is taken that would really punish people maybe unjustly. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Lindy, asking you to unmute. 3 minutes.
Yeah, I just had a quick comment. Over the years, I've listened to a number of residents in Cabrillo Estates who have problems with their septic tanks. They can't do laundry except every 3 days, I believe that I think Cabrillo needs to just be part of our community that acknowledges that we're going to have to, it'll be a lot simpler to contribute to hooking into the sewer. And we will move on from this issue of the nitrate increase. So that's all.
Thank you. All right.
And I think Barbie and Jeff have a comment.
Okay.
There we go. Oh, you have to unmute yourself, Barbie.
You've been asked to unmute.
Now?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for letting me talk. My name is Barbie Bring-Gurley, and I've been a resident of Los Osos for 52 years. I was initially attracted to this area because of its unique beauty and the small town friendly atmosphere. I've served the community with initially 2 professions, 43 years as a dental hygienist and 52 years as an equestrian professional. My husband, Jeff Gurley, served on LOCAC for 9 years. We and many other equestrians have worked tireless hours through the years to create the Montaña de Oro horse camp and sustain equestrian access through the community for safe passage to the beach and Montaña de Oro State Park. We've repeatedly felt success in our goal through the years, only to find out again and again that our access was again threatened. There are many horses scattered throughout our community, owned by business people, professionals, and families who support our community's existence and want to recreate with their horses. Equestrian people visit our community from other areas, and during their stay, they provide economic revenue for our services. A safe access way is very important, and for many years, the vacant area now called the Morro Dunes Ecological Reserve provided this. It is currently closed to equestrians with the signage, no horses in multiple areas. This forces people to ride their horses on paved streets, an undesirable and unsafe result. I must also add that through the 52 years of riding the multi-use trails in this Morro Dunes Ecological Reserve area, passerbys have always been friendly and considerate of one another, keeping dogs on leashes and announcing approach of blind areas. This encourages safety for all. Unfortunately, as a result of this no horses signage, there is now a common negative, even violent flavor to the comments yelling at us when we are riding where allowed. You can't be here and your horses are ruining our trails. This is untrue because the existing perimeter trail and many other trails within the boundary are in the same condition they were 52 years ago. I sincerely hope we can find a safe, inclusive solution to this problem, honoring all our residents who love and enjoy our beautiful area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. That is the end of our public comment. Let's move for the council to approve the minutes from our March 23rd meeting. Can I get a
move
motion?
approval.
I'll make a motion.
Motion?
Second.
Okay. Motion, Deborah, since I'm doing minutes. It's going to take longer tonight.
And
Second.
Jim Stanfield made the
Jim.
second.
Okay, thank you. Committee reports, treasurer's report, Jim.
Yeah,
Oh,
real
wait,
quick.
I'm sorry, we have to vote.
Take a vote.
All in favor of accepting the minutes. Sorry, this is
Aye.
where I really need Tom. Okay. Okay, anyone opposed? It is unanimous. Sorry, thank you.
All right.
Now, treasurer's report.
Beginning balance end of February, $1,908.46. We had a deposit of 16 cents interest. Paid a check to the chamber for $100. Our ending balance is $1,808.60.
Okay. Thank you very much. Committee reports. Larry Bender, land use.
Just real quick, Monday, we've got one project to look at, a homestay. Anyone interested, show up Monday, May 1st meeting, 7 o'clock.
Okay, let's go to trees and landscaping, either Andrea or John.
Very briefly, we had a meeting last week. We reviewed the planting project at the community center. It's going well, or it went well. John and Margaret have really been watering, so that's nice. We're looking at some new projects, including potentially at the sheriff's department. I'm sad they weren't here tonight. And then we did have a pretty good discussion about code enforcement response. That's really it.
Okay. Thank you. Outreach, could we have Kristen?
I was gone last month, so let's keep it tight and say that there's lots of things in the works. And actually, all you guys talking about this stuff has given me new ideas. So we'll get there. We'll meet next month.
Thank you. Deborah, Howe, or Larry on water report committee?
Yeah, my water report's very short because James actually did a lot of talk about the water, and there was no basin management committee meeting in April, so I have nothing to report there. The only thing I will mention is that there was the airborne geophysical survey of the Los Osos groundwater basin by the Department of Water Resources. That was the helicopter flying over with the big hoop, and it was surveying areas to improve the understanding of our groundwater resources and support of management of the groundwater. So that's my water report.
Thank you very much. All right, active transportation, Deborah.
Hey, transportation. As you all know, we received a grant to get a safety assessment from Safe Track. I met on Monday with the consultants from FAIR and Peers, They've been tasked with doing the complete street safety assessment. The assessment is being done at no cost to Los Osos or to the county. We walked around Monarch Grove Elementary School. We looked at all the routes to school there. We did the same at Baywood Elementary. We interviewed the crossing guards at both locations. We briefly visited the middle school, and we finished by walking Baywood downtown area and observing the farmers market. The consultants will issue a report when they have finished their analysis. And then my final comment is there will be an in-person meeting of the Traffic and Circulation Committee on May 16th, location to be determined. I'm hoping it will be at the CSD office, but I'll let you know. I'll put that out on Nextdoor. I encourage all residents who have concerns about transportation or transportation safety to come and express their concerns. That's my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions on our committee reports from the council? Okay, thank you. Larry, can you go over the consent agenda items? I guess not on. Yes, can you discuss the consent agenda item and then go into the regular agenda items for me?
Basically, the first consent agenda item is permit is being withdrawn. They're not going to try to turn a storage building into a hotel room. They decided just to return the storage building to its permitted use as a storage building, and they will inspect it, and so there'll be no water use or electric use or anything else, and it will be inspected by the county or county planning and building.
Okay.
So that was that, and then we had 3 items on the regular agenda, just in case there's any discussion on them. The first one is a vacation rental, and it met all the requirements for a vacation rental. And the biggest issue is they're right next door or right around the corner from this person is an illegal vacation rental or an unpermitted vacation rental. We are asking the county to follow up on this and with code enforcement to shut this unpermitted vacation rental down, because it's not fair to a person who goes through all the process of getting a legal permit for a property and then having somebody next door to them, do it without doing it legally. So that's that. And so I would like, I place it out to.
So I will make a motion to approve the vacation rentals since they meet all of the guidelines and inform the county in writing about the illegal vacation rental.
Consent agenda also. We have to vote on approving the consent agenda.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, without Tom, we've lost.
All right, can we get hands up for those who approve the consent agenda?
I approve.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Now, do I have a second to my motion on?
Yeah, I'd second it.
Okay. Can I get a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. Can you talk about 0004? Larry?
Okay. Yeah, the next 2 items are down in Baywood. And talking about 04 is the 2-story building. What is it? Next to the Merrymaker and the old hotel that used to be there, and the little takeout restaurant.
Noise
and Noise. The top story the building has been converted into hotel rooms unpermitted. And they are trying to get those rooms permitted. And our discussion centered around bringing the building up to code. It would be a shame to deny this permit use, I think, or, we talked about, because Baywood is a vibrant area of our community. But I'm not going to open this up.
Okay.
So anyway, we had discussion on this project. And so we brought it here for discussion. I don't know if the applicant or the is here with us, not the applicant, that's
Yeah. The agent.
the
Matt,
agent.
are you here?
I see a Matt right here.
I see a Matt. Is that Matt Davis? I don't know.
I'm asking a Matt to unmute.
That's me, yes.
Okay.
There he is.
Matt, is there anything you would like to bring up
go ahead,
about?
Matt.
And if you could talk about both 04 and 07.
Yeah, absolutely. We discussed it quite a lot during the last meeting, but I'm happy to go over everything again. I know it's late. I'll try and be brief. Yes, both of these permits are for gaining the land use entitlement for previous work done without a permit. They, new people are taking over and they would like to go through the appropriate avenues to make sure everything is up to code and appropriate for these buildings. And so far, it's going well. It's a commercial retail parcel that defines the hotel motel use as a principal use. We have provided 10 parking spots for 1325 Second Street and an additional 6 for 1315. Both locations include an ADA parking spot. We're providing the appropriate garbage containers after consulting with the waste management, and have obtained the continue to will serves from both the sewer company or county public works and the local CSD. But I'm happy to answer any questions that I'm sure you may have.
I see a hand up for, first, is there any council members that have a question on this project? Because I know Larry, Deborah, and I talked to the county, we talked to Claire and Nicole, so we have some bigger understanding. Let's start with Patrick. Oh, Patrick, you're muted there.
Thank you. I cannot support these projects because in doing so, we are awarding the hotel for illegal use of our water for the last 15 years. And now they're wanting to get a permit for it. This is the time right now we need in Baywood, we need more commercial building. We need more businesses. We used to have bicycle shops and canoe places and everything else. It's all gone now to motel use, basically. We're not just a motel center. We are a community, and we need to have more community people, businesses in our area. And if we use up all these spaces for motels, we won't have that available. So I just can't support this at this time.
Okay. Jeff, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Yeah, interesting. Patrick just mentioned that. I really don't have an opinion one way or the other versus the permitted or unpermitted and trying to, bring it up to code and change it to hotels. But frankly, to the same point, that's a very finite location. And if we're all going to, I don't know how many other businesses can actually be in that space. I think if we're giving it up to just hotels, that's going to permanently potentially change the future complexion of the place. Anyway, it's just an offhand comment.
Thank you. I think from talking with the planning department and knowing that the new owners really are trying to bring everything up to code, which I am grateful that they're bringing everything up to code. You know, there's a few things that I think would make this hopefully palatable for everyone is if the agent and the new owners would provide to the county a professional water assessment of use that is being used currently and what water use will be done in the future, but have that done by an outside source. I think we also need to have a parking plan that meets today's standards on hotel and motel parking. Provide a plan that shows how these properties are meeting the current standards for hotel occupancy, such as fire sprinklers, ADA accessibility. Make sure that the buildings are inspected with code enforcement and fire safety. And then maybe, Patrick, to your point where you don't think they were official, maybe have the whole hotel voluntarily upgrade all toilets to a 1 gallon toilet versus a 1.6. I mean, retrofit the whole place. And I think, you know, if we can do things like that and make sure that those are, I mean, we're not here to penalize people. That's not our job. Our job here is, this is a project. What do we advise the county to do with this project? And that's what I want to talk to our council. I mean, that is our job, is to say, okay, this is a project. Maybe in the past it wasn't done right, but moving forward, they're trying to get things up to code. So what would make us more comfortable as a community for them to do in order to us to give the comments back to the community? So we have 2 council members, Larry and then Kristen, that we're going to go to first. Larry.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm having a hard time supporting it myself. I think, you know, for 15 years, it would be, you know.
Los Osos Community Advisory Council meeting for March 23rd.
Well,
Let's go directly to the roll call. Where did that come from?
I don't know.
Someone's playing the link that I put in the chat.
Oh.
All right.
I'd like to know how much water was used over the last 15 years with the differences in the uses. You know, a lot of, you know, we've been overdrafted for all these years, and this is the type of project that contributed to it. And from what I understand, there has been no fines or anything after they found out that this was going on and nothing was permitted, and there's no, you know, there's no price to pay for that. I don't, you know, it's been an problem.
Then we could have that study go back to what an outside source would assume that they used for the past 15 years too.
Yeah, if I saw more
data.
I could vote for it, but with the way it is right now, without those studies, I can't support it.
Okay, thank you. Kristen?
I just wanted to note that we should not be disapproving things like this based off of the use if it's permitted. We talk about, you know, it used to be like this, the neighborhood used to have a bike shop and things like that. Well, we used to have a gym, and I actively looked into building and buying that gym out and opening it. But because we have no development here, and because we have empty built houses, and because we don't support development, I can't afford to go in with these cute amenities. But you know who can? Hoteliers. So until we have these situations, there won't be small businesses that are going to be successful. In fact, and then on top of that, hiring is very impossible if you want to make a living here. So for real, one of the reasons Nautical Bean didn't open down at the bay is because they couldn't find anybody who was willing to drive in for a minimum wage from San Luis Obispo or wherever they could. So these are things that you guys need to understand, that if you're going to say, oh, I can't do that because I'd rather it be something else. These are the conditions that have been put upon us by the restrictions that are in place and by the real estate. So that's my piece.
Okay. Next up is, I think, Jeff, your hand is still up.
Yeah, I just one last comment. Do we know how many of those small commercial places, if these stay as hotels, how many other businesses are potentially buildable or could take space? I don't know how many spots are available right now, so I don't know what percentage this is taking.
Okay,
anyway,
Lindy.
Yep.
Lindy, asking you to unmute.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are very offended by the abuse that went on with the prior owners. At this point, we've got new owners that are trying to make it right and go the direction that we need. I continue to believe that if people say they're only going to use so much water with new development, that they live up to that. And I don't know if we could put in that we request that they have flumes and that hotel, the people that stay at these rooms, if it is approved, live within their means. I mean, that's, again, we're trying to save water and not abuse our water basin any further. So I'll just leave that as my comment.
Thank you. Becky, I'm asking you to unmute.
Okay, thank you. And Trish, I do appreciate, I think it was you, Trish, that was talking about having the entire hotel retrofit to make up for extra water use. But yeah, I mean, 10 illegal hotel rooms for 15 years.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a new project moving forward. We
Well,
have
it
to
is a
remember
new
this
one moving forward, but I would like to say too, as Patrick was saying, not that we have to have a bike shop or a kite shop or a whatever, but there are very few places for businesses. And as Kristen said, housing is a huge issue here, and we don't seem to take into consideration how many illegal vacation rentals we have, how many illegal homestays we have, portions of homes that used to be rented out to people that worked here for minimum wage are gone. So it all goes into the mix. Thank you.
You're welcome. Susan, I'm asking you to unmute.
Yes, I'm really against this as a community person, based on the fact that there are so many people here who are trying to build a home that have owned property for years and years and have permits in there that are still waiting to build a home. And these people who did it illegally are going to be grandfathered in. And the people who are coming to stay at the hotels are not conscious of the water use. I've heard several people say that when they had company, that they realized their water bills went way up with the company because people don't know how to turn on water slowly and only use the amount you need to wash your hands. They turn it on full force and let it run. Well, you know, the whole time. I think it's unfair to the community that this was done and allowed to continue, and including the fact that one of the 4 units that are being put in on 2nd Street is now doing all of the laundry for the whole Back Bay Inn. And that used to be a room. There used to be a room at the Back Bay Inn where the laundry was done. So they turned that into a room for rent and moved the laundry services somewhere else. So I'm just against it as a community member.
Thank you. As Deborah, and then we'll get a motion. Oh, there. Deborah, we can't hear you.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. So Trish and I met with the county and we dug into this quite a bit. And Matt, you might actually comment on this. Historically, that building was a hotel. At the beginning, it was a hotel.
1951.
And so this is not like, oh, all of a sudden they decided to make it into a hotel. It was historically a hotel. As far as abuse of water, well, I can think we can safely say that there was rampant abuse of water use all over the community of Baywood. I, for one, like to look forward and try to make things right for now. I can't go back and punish the people who did what they did. And honestly, Nicole said back in the, as far as 1970s, things were very loosey-goosey. There weren't even permits. There were no regulations. So a lot of things happened. So let's not try to go back and punish people for what happened in the past. Let's deal with today. A bike shop or a kite shop, I don't think they're going to survive here. hotel rooms will survive here, and we need the business income for our community because we're not able to develop. So until that day that we can develop more commercial industry, I think we need to, deal with our best solution here.
Yeah, good. I'm trying to be brief, but you're 100% correct. The garden room was constructed in 1951 originally as a hotel, and from 1960 to somewhere in the 80s, it operated as a 5-unit hotel. And then in 1972 is when this 2-story building was constructed, and it was constructed as retail and a residence. And then the residence was converted to a restaurant. And restaurants use a mass amount of water. And that goes into the decision-making by Nicole and the planning department by looking back at the previous land use entitlements, looking at what these parcels have been used as, and then trying to define this new project that is as built and coming in late, I agree, of is it an increase in use or is it a decrease in use? And that has all things, water, circulation, all the things we like to talk about. And Nicole and the planning department have defined it as not an increase in use. And so, those are very good points, and I appreciate you bringing them up.
Okay, and Andrea, you're up.
I just have a really quick comment. I think I can support this if we include many of the conditions or comments that you talked about in your presentation, Trish.
Okay,
In
so
your motion.
then I will make a motion that the agent, the new owner, has to do those 4 things, which would provide to the county a professional outside water assessment from the past, even if it's 15 years of use currently and in the future when the project is completed. Provide to the county a parking plan that meets today's standards on hotel motel parking requirements. Provide a plan that shows how these properties have met current standards for hotel occupancy, such as fire sprinklers, safety, ADA. Make sure that all the buildings are inspected by fire safety and code enforcement. Voluntarily upgrade all toilets to a 1-gallon toilet versus a 1.6-gallon toilet. And those are going to be the comments that are sent to the county. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second from, okay, I have a second from Jim. All in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed? Abstain. Abstain is Larry L. Patrick, how are you voting?
Abstaining.
Pardon?
I'm abstaining.
Abstaining, okay. Patrick and Larry. Larry R. Jim. Okay, everyone else, yes. Okay, thank you very much.
The report, I'm curious if the report came back that they're going to use more water than not, are we okay in the project? I mean,
we can put that on under number 6, which means we need to change the motion to add number 6 that LOCAC will receive a copy of their water report. Do we have approval to add that to the motion?
Yeah, I can second that motion.
Wait, can I ask, what's the movement on that? Will they come back up for a vote? Because if we receive the report, what does it do for them and us?
Information.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I just feel like at that point, I like information, but I feel like why are we asking them to do it for this particular project, but not everything? So
correct. No, I agree. Water report. All right. All right. Thank you very much. It does pass. And we will submit all of these comments to the county and get that out hopefully tomorrow. So the county will have it by Monday. All right. The next on it are business items. Larry has item number 8 that he would like to talk about.
I wanted to ask that we, in our bylaws, it says public members of committees are to serve an 8-year term. I have a couple of very valuable members that are coming up on their 8-year term. And I don't have anyone standing in line to take their place. Or anyone, I've had a vacancy in land use for a while. So I asked the committee if we could extend their term for another 2 years.
Committee, what do you think?
I'd like to make a motion first that we go past our 9:30
The
time.
motion,
This is a
I'm
motion.
not sure how about doing this.
Yeah, a motion to go past our 9:30 deadline, so we continue on.
I will second that motion. All in
Should we-
favor? All in favor? Opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
I'm going to have comment on this, which is one of the things I discovered when we had the outreach was we don't have a policy for getting people on committees aside from like, do you want to be on it? Cool.
Yeah.
Right. And you said you had a vacancy, but like, is there a set vacancy? Like, I kind of feel like to make a decision like this, to change the bylaws when there's no procedure in place, doesn't make sense to me yet. Does that make sense? Like, so, like, hey, this is how you get on the committee. Here's your term. Here's how we get other people off, or how we recruit, or anything like that.
okay, what other comments?
Well, we do have a basic in our policies and procedures. I mean, we have a basic, it doesn't call out for numbers, but it talks about, you have to do an application and that sort of thing. So it's very basic, but we do something.
Yeah.
But certainly not to, anything to extend after the 8 years. To my knowledge.
I just want to make a comment that land use is very complicated, and I think it's important to have people on the committee who understand the issues. But I would really want to encourage you, Larry, to get some new people onto the committee so that they can get trained up. I'm not opposed to extending the timeline from 8 to 10 years, but I think that you really do need to bring some new people in so that they have a couple years of getting the foundation of what happens there, because it's a very complicated subject.
We'd have to change the bylaws.
Yes, we would have to change the bylaws.
The other thing on that, actually, I've been messaging somebody on this meeting, and she was like, what we need is a LOCOSOS 101. And I actually think that if we did like a succession planning where we gave these people this information, because listening to this, it's like, how does public works work? How does permitting work? How does that, it's actually a really great opportunity to get people into these positions so that you do have well-educated people put into them. So this is not what Larry's asking for, but again, I would like personally to see a little bit more structure from us before we decide to change the bylaws.
Larry, I know that Kristen and I, through outreach, are really trying to reach out to the community to get members. We've got a few names that are people that have some good interest right now. So if you could give us a little bit more time through outreach to see what we can do, let's say extend for the next three months, see what we come up with. Would that work for you, Larry?
In the 3 months, what happens to these 2 members?
Well,
that's all I'm asking from
Yeah.
is the committee here. And
because
it doesn't have to be, I asked for 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm asking for an extension of the term of 1 year. Time to find somebody else. Or I can let them go and we can shrink down, and I don't think we get the full benefit of community input. As I said, I had one more public member and I haven't been able to fill that spot.
So my question is, why is this an emergency if we all knew that these terms were coming up in the first place? And the other thing that I get is like, since I've been on, it's like, you're not doing it according to the rules. You're not following our rules. And I don't know how we answer the public that when they want us to be really stringent on the bylaws and the rules and that kind of stuff. And then we're supposed to break it because suddenly these people are off the committee. And I don't know who they are, so I'm really not even pivoting whoever they are.
I'm not saying break the rules. What I'm asking for is an extension. A
And
temporary
bylaws are literally the
extension.
only rules, and it is a rule break because there's no process for it. So I'm not trying to be a jerk, but it's just like, it happened, they have to get off apparently this month. Why didn't we think about this a year ago or whatever?
I've been talking about it. I've
Oh, I
been bringing
didn't
it up at every meeting.
Okay, I'm sorry. Somehow I've not processed that in the last year I've been on.
Why don't we just split the baby here and give them a 3 month extension? And then at that time, we find some new members or we don't.
Larry, when are there, what month are they both up?
It's not definite, but we've used May as the time we vote in new members, so I'm using May. One of them's been on longer than me, and one of them I brought on board. So I know for me, I've been on for 8 years.
Okay.
So I know one has been on 8 years,
Longer.
which our bylaws say after 8 years, they're supposed to take a break, and then we can ask them back if they want.
After 2 years, after 2 years.
After 2 years, that's what the bylaws say. So I can either let them go, according to our bylaws, let them go next month at the May 1st meeting, tell them this is their last meeting. These are members of the community. These are people that have cared about our community, cared about what goes on here. They're volunteering, and all I'm asking is, if I had a bunch of other people wanting to be on land use, wanting to join LOCAC, wanting to fill the other committees, I'd say, sorry, our bylaws say time's up, take a 2-year break, do that. Cause I've got these other people waiting in line.
I'm just thinking, Larry, I've got 2 people that I might be that may be saying yes, this week. So I might have somebody for you. That's all I'm saying.
And that can fill, there used to be a lot of people on land use.
Yeah, but it's not so much fun anymore. That's why people are off.
Yeah, and it's a tough job for us, we have to make some tough comments, to people about building and water and not building, and you can't have a home and you can't do this and you can't do that, and we worked real hard on this vacation rental thing, and it so that when I have volunteers that want to stick with it and continue to help grow the community, it's tough to have to tell them, no, sorry, you guys got to go. And I'm not, and it's going to be vacant. Maybe one place will be filled.
Okay.
Okay,
let's hear the rest of the council. And Andrea.
I was just going to say, wouldn't an alternative be to just bring back an item at a future meeting for amending the bylaws? I mean,
yeah, we can't do it tonight.
No, but take a vote on it. I mean, I certainly understand the predicament, but I think we don't have a process to do it. So just, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Okay. Larry R.
Yeah, I think I don't have a problem with changing the bylaws, and if Trish, you got a couple more people that want to be on it, the more the merrier. It's not like there's a limit on how many people can be on it, but I think having experienced people that know what they're doing and want to be there is kind of important. So I'm kind of in favor of voting maybe at a different time to change the bylaws.
Okay, we can put on the agenda next month. Patrick, you are next.
Yeah, thank you. That would be great if we could have it on the agenda. Our next meeting is on the 1st, and then we will meet, LOCAC will meet, And if we can change it on our bylaws, then we can keep them on after that on the land use meeting following that.
Correct.
We do have 2 spaces right now that haven't been filled. If we lose these 2, then we have 4 spaces that aren't filled. So it would be great if we could, continue this on until we can get more people coming in that are interested in serving.
Because we used to have to turn people away to get onto land use. I mean, it was full. We were having 10, 12 people on land use, and now we can't get anyone on there. Kristen.
First question is like, what are the spaces? Like, I'm not aware of when you guys say that, like, again, as the chair of outreach and then not, and then now again, I don't know that we even have spaces. So is this like something that you guys settled on within your committee, or like, I don't get that part.
Larry Bender.
It came in broken on the
Oh.
thing, and
I'm
so
sorry.
I didn't hear.
We keep talking about spaces available, but nobody gave me guidelines for filling committees that I know of. So I don't know what these spaces are where you're like, we have public spaces, and is that something?
In our bylaws, I know for land use, in our bylaws, it says there has to be so many committee members and public members.
Well,
and then there is a maximum.
We have a maximum. We don't have a minimum. We have a maximum.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. So
we don't have a minimum. So if you did go down to like 4, that is a minimum, not a, we put it in the bylaws because there was always a maximum that we were trying to exceed in land use, but there's no minimum.
I think what Larry's trying to say is if we go down to 4, we're not going to be having the diversity of public input, and that these are volunteers. That's so.
I hear you. So here's why I'm digging in is I'm actually going through this with this national organization that I used to be a part of, like very heavily. It was on the board. Actually, it's international. And the same people have been on the board for 20 years and it's about to go under. And there's a requirement that people have to be removed after 8 years with a 2-year gap. So this is a standard nonprofit organizational thing, and it allows new people to come on, because the problem is that if you keep extending it because people want to be there, you don't make space. And I hear what you're saying with the max. So I don't want to, but I just want you guys, while you guys like, well, yeah, they're volunteers, they want to be there. There's actually a reason it's probably in the bylaws. And I wasn't there when we wrote it, but it's a very standard thing. And it becomes hugely problematic if you end up with a full committee that they don't ever want to leave. And then we keep extending them out thing. So this is my, like, I am worried about that. So that's.
And I do know for a fact that I have 2 people who want to join land use that I am talking to right now. So, I will have 2 people for you in May, but I don't have them tonight.
So can we postpone this to?
So let's postpone this further discussion until the May meeting. And then
can we give Larry some kind of guidance, because I think that's what he's really asking right now too.
Well, those people who have to step off can still come to the meeting. They can still make comment. They just don't get to vote. So it's not like they're being lost or their tribal knowledge is going to be lost, but they won't be able to vote on a project. That's probably the biggest issue right there.
And probably lack of motivation to like call the county or like go see the sites, I would think too, because they're not on the committee, but I don't know. That's the other piece I would think.
Okay. Oh, I can't speak to that. I just think we need to put it on next month's agenda and give it a more comprehensive look at. So anyway.
Sounds like we're going to be in a different place this time next month. So I think by having it on the agenda, we will discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep,
we will. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Larry. We do have one hand up. The last thing I wanted to talk about really quick is it was brought to my attention that maybe this meeting should start at 6 versus at 7. We don't have to make an answer, but we'll put it on the agenda. I give one hands up. What do you guys think? No? Yes?
Yes.
Would love it.
Yes.
It's very hard for me.
Okay. Kids.
No, also work. So
yeah. Okay. So we will discuss that next month.
How about 6:30, Kristen? Does that help?
I mean, yeah, it's just that like work goes into a certain period of time and then you have to get the kids fed and stuff. And theoretically, if my husband's here, it's great, but otherwise not. I still feel like poor Larry doesn't have guidance. Like, do we let them sit on that council while we wait? Because they're having meetings and stuff.
No,
and-
I say on the May 1st meeting, you bring them on. I mean, you just,
There's
I'll
still,
inform them of what was said at our meeting and we're having a discussion on it
Okay.
at the next LOCAC meeting. And
I just want to make
hold
sure
your
you
breath.
feel at
Yep.
least somewhat satisfied with that. So, yeah.
and you may have 2 new members soon that
Yeah.
you can meet, and they might actually even be there for the May 1st meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
Lindy, we're gonna check out. Is there something you would need to talk to us about? You're unmuted.
I appreciate the opportunity. I want to say that new members coming into land use is a wonderful thing, no problem. But they have to come to meetings and understand what we do at land use. And I've been there for many years. I could easily be a public attendant and commenter, but I enjoy having a chance to be in a meeting. If you have 2 people that have never come to one, Trish, that's bothers me because you don't jump on a horse right
Well,
away.
you guys invited me when I had never been, and I learned really quick. And now look
But
where
you
I am.
didn't, but you weren't put on a committee right away, were you?
I was on land use. I went
Well, that's
straight from,
because LOCAC is often desperate. I love our group and our committee,
land use.
our
That's not
council.
desperate.
I've been here for 20 some years now, so on both sides. So anyway, I just say, I think take it to the next meeting and let's have a discussion about who really is going to want to be on committees. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments, or can we adjourn for the evening? All right, let's adjourn. It is 9:47 p.m.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Good
Yeah.
meeting.
Good meeting, Trish.
Thanks. It's a long one.